Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. Today is part two of our three-part coffee break series. This one is Mastering Intune, and today's topic is Modernizing Endpoint Management. Go ahead and drop in the chat where you're calling in from. I see many of you have already done that. We have Twin Cities, Phoenix, Arizona, Wisconsin, Cheyenne, Minnesota, Germany, Massachusetts, Argentina, all over. I'm calling in from New Orleans. Fabian, what about you?
I'm calling in from Minnesota, and it's early here, so I got my cup of coffee ready too.
All right, let's hop into today's content. A little bit of housekeeping. We have content and resources for you available within the On24 platform window. Some of these you can download, some of them are direct links that you can access around today's topics. Interact with us throughout the webinar. So we have live chat pulled up. There's also a Q&A box. So if you have specific questions, you can submit them through the Q&A box and we can address some of those at the end if we have time. And then we'll also have a couple polls throughout the webinar for you to participate in. Also, with our coffee break series, we give coffee to our audience. So thanks for joining. You'll get a $10 digital gift card for coffee for the first 100 people who have joined today. Here's a little overview of our agenda. So as I mentioned, this was a three-part series. Last week, we did efficient app deployment and updates. Today, we're going to be talking about modernizing endpoint management. And then next week, we're going to do Intune data and reporting. And we'll give you a link if you haven't already registered for next week's webinar. But for today's topic, we're going to do tips and tricks to modernize your approach to managing endpoints in Intune. I know one of these topics in particular is Windows 10 to 11, which is probably on many of your minds. I will start us with a poll. Before we get into it, what is your biggest struggle currently with managing endpoints in Intune? Take a moment to click on the screen. And if you're not currently managing endpoints in Intune, drop it in the chat, or if you have an answer that isn't represented here, let us know. Okay, we'll give it another minute. For those that just joined, we're doing a poll. Before we hop into the content, you can click on the screen. Okay, let's check the results. Biggest struggle looks like it's primarily the learning curve, moving from SCCM. Then lack of built-in utilities. We have some across the board. All right, good to know. So our series speaker, we have Fabian Rodriguez. I'll pass it over to him so he can introduce himself, and then we'll hop into today's demos.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining the video today or the webinar. I am Fabian Rodriguez, an IT admin for Recast software. So I handle IT operations here. Really excited to show you some tips and tricks with Intune. And as mentioned, some people are having trouble with the learning curve from SCCM to Intune. So hopefully I can sprinkle some tips and tricks for you all to learn, even if it's something, just one bit, I think that'll be awesome for you all. So looking forward to this. Cool. So as mentioned, we're going to be talking about modernizing device management. And here we can see that we have three different sections highlighted. We're going to be talking about those today. The first one is configuration. Here we can deploy things such as Wi-Fi profiles. And essentially, this is going to allow us to enforce device settings and configurations across our devices. And then our compliance, here we can create compliance policies to make sure that our devices have secure boot or have BitLocker enabled, to allow us to see, hey, if this device is green, it has all our prerequisites. If it's not, maybe we can block it from accessing our corporate data. And then the last one here is scripts and remediation. Um, this is going to allow us to run PowerShell commands and remediations that can help fix issues. And one that's listed there to upgrading to Windows 11 is highlighted under the scripts and remediations, but that might want to fall into a section of its own. I'm going to show us a little bit of the reporting aspect, the admin configuration, and the end user experience from upgrading to Windows 10 to 11. So we got a jam-packed agenda here. Excited to show you some of these tips and tricks. Cool. So let me go ahead and share my screen quick. All right. Awesome. Here we have our Microsoft Intune Center, and as I mentioned, we'll go over the configuration profile section first. And as mentioned, this is going to be used to manage and enforce device settings across our devices. Think of this similar to GPOs, where we're basically putting settings on the device. So one of the ones I wanted to show you was, let's say maybe you have some users heading back into the office, and if you're like me, you set a really hard password, and I'm sorry to my end users, but that's all right, because we can actually pre-configure that Wi-Fi password onto the end user's devices before they get into the office. So essentially, we would deploy this as an admin, and once the user gets close to the office, they should automatically connect to the Wi-Fi office. So here, I'm going to head into this device configuration profile. And of course, it's an error, but I just did this as a demo. Let's go into the configuration settings. So here we can see that our Wi-Fi type is basic. Our SSD is going to be the name of our connection. And mine, this is fictional. This is not real, but I just wanted to show you how this would look if you want to set this up in your environment. So some of the things that are really important here are the SSID name, connecting automatically when in range. You can enable this for your preference, but I didn't. Yes. And then the other ones are the wireless security type. You'll want to select your type here. And then the pre-shared key. This is going to be the password essentially. So like I mentioned, I am a terrible admin and I made this too hard, and I'm sorry for my end users, but no worries. As long as we can get this profile out to the end user's device and they have a connection before they connect to our headquarters, they should get that password. And so I want to show us two more just to showcase configuration profiles. The first one is going to be turning off Copilot in Windows. So whether you're in an environment where maybe you haven't evaluated Copilot, or maybe you have some sort of requirement in your company, like, hey, we're not going to be using Copilot. How do we turn that off? So if we go to create, new policy, and in my case, I'm going to use this for Windows 10 and later. And for our profile type, we're actually going to want to select settings catalog. So let's go ahead and create. And let's do turn off Copilot. Cool. And then we'll click on add settings. And then under the category, it'll be under Windows AI. So let's scroll down. Cool. Here we see Windows AI. And we can see two different options. We can set Copilot hardware key, or we can turn off Copilot in the Windows user. For my scenario, I'm just going to turn this Copilot off for the end users. And here we can see by clicking on this radio button, we're disabling Copilot. So I'm going to show you the quick description. This is going to enable this policy to turn or turn off Copilot. If we disable, it will not appear on the taskbar either, and users won't be able to use this. So let's go ahead and click next, next. And for assignments, I'm just going to do all users really quick. And you'll want to make sure that you're piloting this and testing this out. This is a test environment, so I'm going to click next and create. And then the next one I want to create is blocking a password manager from Google Chrome. So for instance, if you already have a dedicated password manager in your environment and you don't want people saving credentials to unmanaged browsers, this is going to be a great option. So we'll click on Settings Catalog. We'll do Block Password Manager, Google Chrome. We'll do Add Settings, Google Chrome. Google Chrome. All right. I'm going to do, let's see if I can filter this a little more. Okay. Sorry, let me, bear with me. Here we go, Google Chrome. Let's do, sorry, folks. Here we go. Google Chrome Password Manager. Enable saving passwords to the password manager. Here, I'm going to, let's see. Send this thing to disable means you cannot save. Okay, we'll set this to disabled. And let's select all our users again. So we'll go ahead and create. Cool, now let's take a look at this on our device and see these policies in place. So I'm going to head over to my computer. I'm going to run a quick sync. And we'll let that come through. Hopefully those policies pushed. Let's take a look at Google Chrome. Go to passwords, Google Password Manager. All right, so currently we're still able to save this password. Let me run a quick sync on that device. And we can actually take a look at the configuration profile status by going to the device configuration. Here, we can actually see that those haven't applied just yet. And it could take up to 20 minutes for this to be available in the report. So we'll let those run. But I just wanted to show you how those looked from a configuration profile setting side. So here, we can see that we have blocked the password manager for Google Chrome, and also we turned off Copilot. So we'll let that run, and I'll come back to this in the demo. So let's head over to compliance. So we'll go over to devices, and under manage devices, we'll see the compliance record here. Awesome. And compliance is essentially going to monitor and manage the compliance status of the devices. So as we can see here, I have a Recast Software CS compliance policy. Let's take a look at that. Let's go to the properties. And here we can see some of the policies in place for us to have a compliant device is these devices must meet these requirements. So think of it when you enroll a device into Intune, they must have these set of requirements in order for them to be compliant. So in our case, our device needs to have firewall, antivirus, and all that good stuff enabled. So let's take a look at some of the devices in place and see their compliance status. So we can go up here to compliance. And for instance, one of these devices has this compliance policy. Let's take a look at that. Perfect. So my device here has all these enabled, and we can make sure that because we have these compliance statuses. If a device doesn't meet those requirements, we're gonna get something that looks like this. It's gonna be non-compliant, and then we can head over to the device compliance section over here under monitor. Awesome. And then we can see here that the default device policy, and one of the things that you notice is if a device is not active for however long you set it, it will be set to non-compliant. And why does this matter? So let's take a look at it from a security perspective. If a device does not meet our device compliance, we can actually set a conditional access policy, which is basically like if this device is not compliant, please don't allow them to please don't allow them to access corporate resources. So I'll take a look at this. I'll cover this briefly. So require compliant device. And we can see this access control option over here. We can require a device to be marked as compliant, and we can target X amount of resources here. If a device is not compliant, they won't be able to access these resources. So just wanted to cover that really quick. And then I'll move on to the scripts and remediations. And that's going to be under the devices tab. So here we have scripts and remediations. I have a couple already preset, and you can create these as you want. But for remediations, you want to make sure that you have a detection and a remediation script. So if we go to create, let's do remediation, do script test. So here we can see that we need a detection script and as well as a remediation script. So in my case, I already have these set in there, but we also have some options down here. Running this script using the logged on credentials. If the script requires admin credentials and the user is not, I usually recommend no. And then we can see all these other options as well. So I'm going to show you the ones that I already have pre-built. So one of the ones is scheduling a restart here. We can see I have a couple groups selected, and we can set the intervals of when this runs. So let's take a look at this device status. We can see, hey, this detection status has issues and it failed. So we can take a look at that from the admin perspective. And I just want to show you one more thing really quick on this Windows device is if you want to run a remediation script specifically to a device, we can go over to devices, Windows devices, and click on our device. Let's go ahead and run a remediation. So here we can run this scheduled restart and run that remediation. Perfect. So now, I've gone over a couple of those, and lastly, I want to show you updating from Windows 10 to Windows 11. I won't go in depth too much on the reporting aspect. I will cover that next week on our next webinar. But I just wanted to show you mainly the admin configuration as well as the end user's experience. So for reports, we can see that in the Windows updates section here, and we go to reports. If we head over to the Windows feature update device readiness report and select your target OS, you can see the readiness status for your devices. Majority of these devices in my environment already are on Windows 11, but I have this test device here that's on Windows 10. And we can see that the readiness status is low risk, and we don't have any issues here. So it looks like we can move forward with this device. And let's see, how do we set this up as an admin? Let's go over to devices. We'll go over to Windows Updates under Manage Updates. And we're gonna have to we're gonna mainly focus on the feature updates, but I just wanna cover update rings really quick. I wanna show you what I have set here. I have 0 days on deferral, and I'm also not upgrading from Windows 10 to latest Windows 10 devices to the latest Windows 11 release, because I'm going to focus on this in the features update. So here I have two policies set. In my case, I have a required option and an optional option. So why would you use an optional one? Say you're piloting this and you want to see, some adoption from users without requiring it. So in my instance, I actually rolled this out to a few different users to see like, hey, are people interested in Windows 11? If not, we'll leave it up to them. But if we're getting closer to that October 25th date and you no longer want to set it as available, but you want to set it as required, we can go to set this up as required. So here, let's go over to the deployment settings. I gave my deployment a name, and I set it as required. And in the future update to deploy, we're going to select Windows 11 version 23H2. And you can go ahead and select the one that you want and feel comfortable with. But in my case, I just selected version 23H2, and we can set this as a required update. And you can roll this out as soon as possible on a specific date or make this available gradually. In my case, I set it to as soon as possible. So now let's take a look at the optional option. So if we go to properties, and let's take a look at the settings. Here, we can see the only thing that we really changed was this radio button here. Instead of making it required, we're going to make it optional for our users. And I'll show you both of those, how they look from an end user side. But like I mentioned, if you want to roll this out slowly to your users, see user adoption, potentially optional is going to be a great choice. If you want to force this upgrade, I would go the required route. But you know your end users and environment better than I do. So just wanted to show you how this is possible within Microsoft Intune. So now let's head over to those devices. I'm going to go over to my optional device first. So if we go to check for updates, we can see that our Windows 11 version 23H2 option here is available. And we can see it's not required on device, but it's available here. So maybe your end users are curious, like, hey, is Windows 11 available for us? Here it is. So they could download, install, or see what's in the update. So let's say you want to showcase, I'm going to show you really quick how this looks for a required deployment. So let me pull that up really quick. Sorry, just getting that ready. Here we go. Awesome. So now if we go over to check for updates, we should see this Windows 11 update installed. Perfect. So now we can see that it's forcefully installed and it's pending our restart. So now we can go ahead and restart this device, and here in a few minutes or 20 or 30, we should have a Windows 11 device. So just wanted to give you a quick overview on that. And then I did want to cover really quick one of the tools, or one of the right-click tools for Intune options. This is going to be available for co-managed and Intune devices. Let me show you a quick few features inside of Intune. Obviously, they're going to be a little bit more feature-rich for co-managed, but we are short on time, and I wanted to show you a quick few ones. So here, inside of Microsoft Intune, we do see the Microsoft Intune extension, and you can, if you want to learn more about this, feel free to reach out to anybody of my colleagues. But I want to show you just a quick few features here. For right-click tools, we can see, if we go to console tools, if we want to ping this system, see if it's up and running, we can go ahead and try that. So now let me do that real quick, and we'll let that run really quick. Awesome. And then we should see this option pull up over here. Awesome. And we could see, hey, if we wanted to check if this device was up and running in our environment, we could grab that ping option. So we can see that is up and running. Perfect. And then another one is going to be, that I wanted to show you really quick for us to visualize, is, hey, say you have a few devices that need to be shut down in your environment, and whether it's a security vulnerability or they're very stale, we can go ahead and shut down the system. Awesome. And then we get this pane right here. If a user is logged into this computer, we just want to shut it down. And we can delay for 30 seconds, but we also want to showcase this message. So we'll again start, and let me head over to that device right now. Perfect. So we can see that in real time. You're about to be signed out. System will shut down in 30 seconds. So, all right, CS Intune 01. We'll let you write it out, but you have to go to sleep. So, yeah, and that concludes my demo. Are there any questions? I know I went a little too fast, but this recording will be available for us to see, and we will also link some documents and articles that I've mentioned here, or some of the information that I mentioned here will be in articles and available there. So thanks everybody for taking the time to allow me to go over some Intune stuff. I hope it made sense. I hope you picked something up. And if you want to, reach out to me, learn anything, I'm always happy to help. So.
Thank you, Fabian. One person asked, just related to what you did, where is the ping originating? Is it done over the internet?
Great question. Let me find out with one of the engineers and support teams to get that answer for you.
Okay. Well, it's a perfect opportunity here with this poll. If you do want to learn more about our Intune capabilities for right-click tools, let us know. Reach out if we didn't get your question answered in the demo. This will be for us to hop on a call with you. We can show you a demo if you have specific questions, and you can learn more about our solutions. So take some time to respond on the screen. You can click directly on the screen.
And as mentioned, I will go over some of those reporting details next week on our inventory webinar. So I know I just covered a little bit briefly, but I wanted to have a little more information for you all next week. So.
Mm-hmm. And the recordings for these will be sent in the follow-up emails, and then we also post them to YouTube. So last week's webinar is on YouTube already, and then you'll get today's webinar in a follow-up email. Okay, I'm going to close out this poll. So if anyone else wants to respond, go ahead and click that, and I'm going to move on. So our next webinar is December 17th, Intune data and reporting. We'll also have a link to register for that in the follow-up email. Thank you all for joining us today. Appreciate you being here and learning with us and getting ahead of the curve. I know some of you mentioned in the chat that you're not even using Intune at all yet, and I think early learning is always a good move. We'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.